Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Dawn Campbell, your host as usual for this 30-minute Facebook Live. In fact, I say Facebook Live, it's habit, but it's live everywhere now. And I'm your host for this 30-minute Ask Us Anything About accreditation. So I'm joined today. Finally, I don't think we've done this before, have we, David? I think this is
No,
your
we have. I've obviously seen it in the background, and I've heard all about, but we haven't actually done this.
No, I can't believe I've been doing these Facebook Lives for over a year, and only now, head of accreditation, my fellow director, you're in the hot seat. So David Monro-Jones, head of accreditation, is here with us today, and he and I are ideally placed to answer any of your questions. So whether you're training to become a coach and or mentor, we can answer your questions. Or maybe you're somebody who would like the support of a coach and or mentor, and David's ideally placed, particularly if you're in the corporate world, you're a leader, and you're wanting to work with somebody at the top of the tree. David's your person for that. Or perhaps you've kind of stumbled across this Facebook Live thinking, what's this about? How is accreditation going to help me grow my coaching and or mentoring business? Again, we can answer your questions. And Gillian, my lovely VA, is primed, checking all the social media platforms and will feed questions to us. And then perhaps, I suppose, the other audience, David, that we get tuning in is universities and training providers thinking, well, how is accreditation going to help me attract international paying clients? So regardless of what your question is, as long as it's about accreditation in the coaching and mentoring field, we can help you answer that. So I usually like to start these sessions, David, by just saying or asking what fills your heart with joy. And it's got to be outside of work, because I know coaches and mentors are talking about being of service, loving the work, etc. We don't want to hear any of that. That's a given. Outside of work, what fills your heart with joy?
Yeah, I almost started to answer that before before you'd even got to the end. Wildlife, nature, and landscape photography is the because I just love the outdoors. I'm one of these people that when I look outside and it's nice weather, I think, oh, you know what, I wish I worked outside. And then when it snows and it rains, I sort of fall back to the, oh, please I work it so like inside. But I'm learning more and more about photography. So I actually have my own mentoring sessions with people sort of like from camera schools about learning. So like learning photography, I go on a number of sort of like workshops to try and learn. And I found that even taking photographs on my phone, and my phone's way out of date now, so like there are much more advanced sort of camera phones out there, that I think a lot more about sort of like imagery and how things come together. But I also find that sort of in doing that, and I accept the fact that you're like not talking about worky stuff, but I can make sort of like loose connections as well when I'm talking to others about sort of focus and sort of like distance, you know, and things like that. But that's my main thing at the minute, and I've got a workshop coming up on photographing birds of prey. I'm very much, and I appreciate this is about accreditation, but now you've asked, and feel free to stop me if I go on a bit. I always say to people, so like on the mentoring sessions, I prefer fur rather than feathers, because a lot of tutorials are about birds in flight and things of that nature. So I'm quite happy to photograph them when they're perched, but I'm not a sort of like a birds in flight thing. If they've got fur, that's sort of my preference. So I've got that, and I'm looking at booking a sort of a week-long workshop to photograph water for a week. So that would be everything from seascapes to waterfalls to close-ups and macro. And if it's, you know, if there is the opportunity, because they do some studio work as well, freezing water, so you get sort of like water droplets and you get the refraction coming through the sort of like the water droplets of the background and things of that nature. Don't ask me any more about that. I'm more or less just quoting it from this is what you learn. Got no idea really what it means, but it sounds interesting. So that's what, and you can probably tell. So I don't know, so like who could say, but so like the T-shirt is very much, you know, like the heartbeat with the camera on it.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's that's what sort of
Is that one
that
of the
really gets.
t-shirts I got you?
No, no, it's similar to the T-shirt that you got me,
Ah,
which
okay.
is the other one that when I go on any camera event, it's either that one or so like like one of the other ones that I've got.
Yeah.
I found
Just to
a
show your commitment.
Yeah, I found a website that does a lot of so like T-shirts with logos on of cameras and things like that.
Yeah.
So some of them are a little bit. They're the sort of ones you would wear in the house, but you might not necessarily want to go out in public, so like wearing them.
Okay.
But they are good fun.
All right, say no more. Well, I also like seascapes, but not from a photography point of view, but from a watercolor or
Mm.
oils painting point of view. So I was quite fascinated years ago when I came across the Japanese, and I can't even pronounce the gentleman's name, but he photographs water, and he's done a beautiful book. Have you seen it?
I can't say I have because I'm just getting into this. So
Okay, well, you want to look at this book, and if you Google Japanese and water, I'm sure this photographer will come up. But he's created a beautiful book where he photographs the molecules of water. And he does it in ways where he puts messages on the different bottles. So one will be thank you, I love you. And then he photographs the molecules of the water. And they're beautiful crystals. And then
mm,
other ones where it's really angry, I hate you, you're horrible. And it's discolored, it's fractured, etc. And so he said, considering we're 70% water, imagine what our thoughts are doing to us if that can happen in a jar of water. And we know
mm,
people like Prince Charles, as he was then, used to talk to plants. It was the same sort of thing, same experiments. You know, if you talk to plants in a positive way, they will grow and blossom. If you're negative, and in fact, they've done it with children, haven't they? I think it was a study in Romania many decades ago where they gave babies exactly what they needed, but no positive messages.
mm,
And none of them survived past the age of 2.
mm.
So, yeah, this book on water is something you will find fascinating.
I'll definitely have to have a look at that. And there's
Yeah.
in the sort of the courses and things that I've done where it's only been touched upon.
Mm.
It's very similar in terms of you know as a hiker or anything else. So you walk past a body of water, you look at it and go, you're like that's very nice. But once you start taking an image of it and you start changing the settings, and you've got that sense of right, this is as it looks just to the naked eye. This is what the image looks like if I slow everything down. This is what the image looks like if I speed everything up. And you can correlate that to life as well about, right, how is my life going if I'm always going full speed? If I don't stop to really look at, the classic, like you looked but you didn't see, like of right, well, what is going on there? And the on a workshop I was on recently, they were talking about this whole thing about it is very much beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and this is why some photographers will look at a sort of a scene, for want of a better description, and you've got that, what's the composition that I want, and other people will look at it and go, that's a great shot, and other people will go out and go, so I don't like that at all. And he said, like, this is about, just personal and individual style, and it was. I tend to lean towards if I was going to put myself in it, just like more the gothic. So I like darker. Yeah, I like darker background. So if I'm photographing animals, I like a darker background.
Mhm.
With the animal right in the foreground. So I'm not so worried about like how the rest of it looks.
Mm. Yeah, it's fascinating. You've already hinted several times, but I'd like to know more about how you bring your passion for photography, which is very clear in your energy and your voice, with you as an executive coach, David.
It's very much about because I'm also interested in like metaphor and storytelling. In fact, so like in March, I'm doing like a 3-day workshop. Actually, so I stepping across the sort of the grey area because I'm training with counsellors and psychotherapists for sort of like 3 days on metaphor and storytelling because they use it a lot, so like in therapeutic practices. But what I found is that you can talk to people about you know, so like the usual sort of like coaching models, you're like T, Grow, Smart, Oscar, you're like, and so on and so forth. And the usual language, you're like, what are your goals? You know, what does it look like? But once you start talking about, okay, when you look at that, you know, if you could imagine it was a photograph, you know, which part of that photograph is clear, which part of it is not clear, what's in focus, what's not in focus? Are you zooming in on the issue, or are you zooming out? Have you got a wide scale view of this? You know, like, or is it a very narrowed view? And you can use those metaphors to help people to just think about things in, you know, like in different ways. They don't have to be photographers. You know, anybody who's looked at a picture and thought, you know, like that's great. Anybody who's had anything to do with, you know, the sort of puzzles and questions that you often get of, you know, did you know the Mona Lisa has no eyebrows, for example? So no, you know, well, you know, if you ever get a chance to have a look, like just check it out. And it's the, you know, all of the things that we take for granted that, you know, like look, yeah, just look again. And similar correlations are, which may sound a little bit strange, so like an executive level, is the where's Wally of, you know, you can look at something and you can just get, you know, he's there, yeah, but you just get lost in everything. So, you know, how can you become, you know, more focused on, you know, what the point is? And I also use that for getting people to understand that, look, you can come out with sort of like an action list, but you can't do it all at once. So it is about, you're like focusing on, right, you're like, what's the priority? You're like, from that, if you could only do one thing, you know, what would it be? Otherwise, coaching can almost be counterproductive in some cases, because you send people out with a big action list, and then they come back and say, look, yeah, I just had too much to do on the list. So, well, okay, well, what was the priority? And the other correlation I make with that, or the other metaphor, is like when you go shopping. You know, you go with your shopping list, and in an ideal world, you just like trundle along putting stuff in the basket. Or if you're like me, trundle along putting the stuff in the basket you went for and go, oh, I bet that's tasty, chocolate. You're like, and so like, and that'll go in. I know you're a vegetarian, but in my case, oh, so like that animal, it died so that I could live, type of thing. So that goes in. But if there's an announcement then of, look, you're like, the shop is shutting for whatever reason, so I thought I had more time. You look at your list and go, right, you know, what are the priorities? And it's just making the connection back to photography. You can select, so like on cameras, you're like different priorities. So you can select speed as a priority in terms of, do I want to go faster or do I want to go slower? Or you can select aperture in terms of how much light do I want to come in versus, you're like, not as much light. So all of these things, the connections, so like certainly at an executive coaching level, is to help people to recognize, look, once you see what the issue is, and you start to focus in on it, you can start to understand, so like, what you need to do in order to resolve it, and it becomes more of a, oh, well, that's manageable. And it's also the, you know, it's not a race for results. Somebody once said that the difference between taking photographs on 35mm to sort of, you know, what we have now in terms of digital, was that on 35mm you had to wait. You either developed them yourself or you sent them away to Super Snaps or Kodak or whoever it was. They came back and you looked at it and went, oh, yeah, one of them's good. Whereas now, yeah, and there was a cost element to that. Whereas now on digital, you can take 1,000 photographs, put them up on your computer, just work your way through it and go, oh, yeah, I want those ones.
Yeah.
And again, you're making those connections. Like, you're like, you can have too much, too much choice, just narrowed in and sort of, and focus on that, and then work towards that, because that is almost the, what's the composition, what's the image that you want, that you're moving towards in comparison to, into what you've got. So these connections are really useful, because you can then start to encourage people to make, okay, so what's the implication of doing that in relation to that, so that executives start to recognize that the solution isn't, so the solution that you originally come up with, they have to think about, that's a solution to that, but does it have an implication to something else? So, and I love working with that, so like that degree of complexity.
Yeah. And you can tell that you love storytelling as well, because it brings it to life. It
Mm,
makes it very easy to understand. And I guess at CEO level, just thinking about what you said at Finding Wally, and we hear it even with the members that we've got at the IAPC&M, the solopreneurs, they lose themselves in,
mm.
their business plans, they lose their identity, sometimes they lose their purpose. Why was I doing this? I was doing it to have a better work-life balance, etc. But you get that with CEOs of
Mm.
big corporations on a different level, because there's no time to think anymore, is there?
Yeah, and I've said, I think, to everybody that's gone through the accreditation assessment process in the past 6 months, you don't, so when you've got a job title, you don't put yourself in a bubble. You don't lose everything else that's happened just because you're now a coach or a mentor or a training provider. And it's exactly the same at a corporate level. This language of, oh, it's lonely at the top. Um, I challenge that by going, it's only lonely at the top if you don't talk to anybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're the head of if you're the head of IBM or Microsoft or something, it's not like you haven't got anybody to talk to. You've got 50,000 odd people scattered around the globe. That's maybe an exaggeration, but like certainly a lot. So it's not that it's lonely at the top. It's just that you've chosen not to talk to people there. You've chosen, that's a behavior that you've got
Mm.
into. So if you need to talk to somebody and they're in the organization, talk to them. If they're not in the organization, find somebody else. It's not, and people get, I think so. People get drawn into this language of, oh, well, yeah, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to do the other. And yes, there are the key activities that you have to do. I mean, so you and I know, there are the monthly chores that you have to do. Like, I really wish I didn't have to do this, but it needs to be done. At a director level. But like sometimes it's the right. I'm busy, but am I focusing on the right thing? Yeah. Should I be doing this, or should I be doing something else?
Mm.
And sometimes people just need to be like challenged by things like that. Otherwise, it becomes oh well, according to Google, I'm supposed to be lonely at the top. And I'm supposed to do you're like all of these things because it says so in the director's manual. And it's a bit like, well, why?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
when was the last time you went down and you spoke to your team?
yeah.
There was many years ago when I was working for an organization as one of the sort of like heads of the learning development of the area that I had. We had a sort of like the annual conference, and the all of the directors, all of the business directors and HR director and operations director and CEO, everybody was invited. And we would do a little bit of a presentation on what we were doing from a learning and development perspective, and what we thought. And one of the girls in the department highlighted the fact that across all of the distribution centers, the only time people saw a director was at Christmas, because they would roll out and go, you're like, hi, happy Christmas, you're like, and all of
God.
this sort. It was like
Yeah.
in their agenda. And she just stood up and she said, look, in order for people to understand, like who you are, and part of this was the fact that the CEO wasn't allowed into one place because the guy on the door didn't know who he was and he didn't have any identification with him. So he was given his marching orders and had to go to his car and phone and say, can somebody let me in? And she coined the
That's
expression, a
right.
director is for life, not just for Christmas, picking
Yeah,
up on the dog one.
yeah.
And they all like started to realize that I can't live in my there are times when I've got to do that, but at other times I need to like be out there, I need to be seen, I need to talk to people. How else do you know what's going on?
Mhm.
It's a bit like why we always say, look, to members, just give us some feedback. Tell us what's good, tell us what's not, what's working, what's not working, and
Mhm.
the opportunity every now and again to just like step outside that. So a lot of the work that I do, and I say this readily to people that I work with, is as somebody said to me the other day, it was the beginning of a mentoring session. First time we met, I said, I've written down my strengths and weaknesses. And I simply said, well, that's very nice. So, but you could tell me anything. You could tell me you're great at this, that, and the other, and you're a brain surgeon, and you're just waiting for your like the nod that you've got the Nobel Peace Prize, and that you'll be the first person on the Virgin Atlantic Space Shuttle. So you could tell me anything, Go and talk to the people you work with. Yeah, get the information from them. I've somebody else again, so like at a leadership level, I've literally just sent them out to do that. Give them a list of
Yeah.
questions. Said, right, go out with these 5 questions. Speak to your manager. Speak to your direct reports. Speak to your colleagues. Everybody else you can find, and then come back and talk to me about what you found out. So that's real. Okay, not the right. You're like, according to the director's manual,
Yeah.
I need to understand my strengths. Yeah, great, but
Mm.
who am I as a coach to know?
Getting that 360 feedback can be terrifying, particularly for people at the top, because we've all suffer from this
Mm,
perfectionist syndrome, don't we? But there's something else as well when we hear that people at the top are lonely, is there's this attitude of, well, are we competitors or are we collaborators? And there are thousands of groups for us to join with like-minded people.
mm.
We don't have to see everybody as a competitor, and we can share things. And that's why it's good to talk. It doesn't have to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
internally,
and it's
externally as
we've
well.
we've moved away from the sort of east and west Berlin, checkpoint Charlie, and some things are always going to be confidential,
Mm,
within organizations. So it's not a case of
yes,
going out and, oh, we've got this brand new product. Would you like to see the specs of it?
yeah,
But the likelihood is, like many organizations will have dealt with the same issues that people are
yeah,
dealing with, and um, there is that, as you say, there's more of a requirement for collaboration and just expanding your network, and asking that question, right? Who do I not have a relationship with that I really need to have one with that will help me with the issue I've got? Yeah,
mm.
what is it stopping me, like from going and speaking to them?
I
And
think that's
I
one
have
of
to
the good
say to
things
people,
about LinkedIn, isn't it?
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
it's encouraging having a conversation. How can I be of service to you? Let's network, let's talk, let's help each other.
yeah. Again, yeah, and the what I find is when people embrace that properly, it's great. You can share ideas. And I'm sure everybody gets this, and I will get people going, oh, you're like, I've checked your profile out, really like what you do. It would be great to collaborate. Yeah, okay, connect. And then 2 days later, I'll get another email or a LinkedIn message saying, "Oh, by the way, I've got this product that will, I guarantee you, like 1,000 new clients a week, and you'll buy your own island in the Maldives, like in a couple of months' time." And I've got into the habit of just disconnecting. Yeah, I unconnect from those people and go, look, that's not true collaboration. That's that's you connecting under false pretenses because you want to sell me something. And I put that message out once. I said, if you want to connect with me, to share ideas, great. I'm all up for that. That's I'm sure, so like most people who know me will know. If I've got it, I'll share it. I've got no issues about that. But don't connect with me if you just want to sell me something. Because if I need to buy something, I'll search for it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mind the light bit of, it's great to connect. By the way, we've got this probably. If ever you want to know anything about it, let me know. I'm
Hmm.
comfortable with that.
Hmm.
It's the right, like, we've got this. You're like, can we jump on a call? It's like, no.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I've got a lot more. Somebody's, it's actually in my profile because they said, you know, you're sort of unapologetically direct and challenging. You're like when you're out of your shell. And it was like, and I've sort of embraced that for a lot of things now. Of generally, you're like, that is just the way that I am. I much
Mm.
prefer to just say it as it is, and I sort of on the subject of LinkedIn, I went in and purged all of these old sort of like conversations I had, and that was incredibly refreshing.
Mhm.
Yeah, on the basis of if it was important, somebody will get back to me, and nobody did.
Yeah.
So we tend to just hang on to stuff just in case.
Yeah, it's that attachment, isn't it?
Mm,
And it's ego related as well. How many likes, how many followers do we have? But actually, a smaller database or a smaller following that is real is much more valuable than a couple of
mm.
thousand who don't know you and they're just trying to sell something to you anyway. So we've got a
Yeah,
quick question.
mm.
Sorry, finish your point
No,
and then
I
I'll.
was just going to say it's when you look at like people who've got like millions and millions of followers.
Mm.
And that, oh yeah, they must be like really connected. I always say, yeah, do you think they send them all Christmas cards? Okay. Yeah, just and some people do that. They will do something just to get the number of like hits or views or the number on
Yeah.
the profile. But you're absolutely right. And certainly for some people more than others, and to a certain degree, this comes down to personality. Is yeah, some people will prefer a smaller nucleus of like friends, that they can call true friends, whereas other people will want like a bigger group of people that are more casual. And
Mhm.
yeah, and either's fine. It's
Mm,
just it's knowing that you're doing it for the right reasons. Um,
mm. Yeah.
so I have a set number of like followers and connections on LinkedIn. Like everybody, I started with one. When I got up to 50, I was happy. When I got up to 100, I was happy. But I don't connect on the basis of, oh, I've got to get this number up. I connect on the basis of, right, is there something that we can share? Is there a useful connection here?
Yes, yeah. And I think the philosophy of being of service, it's got to be a win-win-win. And
Oh
the
yeah.
extra win is not just you and me, but it's the each of our client database. If they can
Mm.
win as well, then everybody's happy. Gillian has very kindly forwarded me a question from Mary. Will coaches be coached by the IAPC&M during the accreditation process? Good question.
Yes, they can be, if that's something that they require. The normal procedure is that they will receive all of the information that they need. We supply videos of all of the capability areas. So we have 10 capability areas. If at any point somebody would like some additional coaching or mentoring or support through any of those capability areas, either one of the accreditation team will, or sort of members of the the CPD team, so like you can step in as well. And that usually takes the form of run a session, and receive some feedback. But equally, we'll comfortably go out to people and say, look, like, is there anything additional, that you want or that you need in
Mm,
preparation for the process? And in addition to that, we also offer supervision. So you're like after people have sort of qualified or become accredited.
yeah. I want to come back to supervision in a moment. I can just be conscious of the time though,
Mm,
and really highlight the fact that some years ago we did put together these 12 masterclasses. It's 11 really, because the 12th, well, the first one was an intro to what was coming. And since then, whether you're a master coach and you receive that, or whether you're a newbie coach just having graduated, everybody loves those calls, don't they?
mm,
It's very reassuring, it's light-hearted, it means they don't go into the assessment blind, they know exactly what we're looking for. It's a great refresher, which is what the master coaches have said. And so many of our training providers have actually absorbed those into their courses
mm.
now. I've even heard one person say they learnt more in those 11 hours of the master classes than they did on their own coaching whole course. So nobody need worry going through the assessment. Of course, it's always a bit scary putting yourself
Mm.
through an assessment. It's voluntary. We're an unregulated market. So we're stepping out of our comfort zones to do that. But we're not trying to trick you. We've got all the material that you need to prepare. So as long as you're not blasé and just book a time with the assessment team, and you do some preparation, you should be fine.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out that the email that everybody gets, which outlines what the process is, after the dear Sharon, so like, I hope you're well. It clearly outlines in bold letters, you're like, when and only when you are ready to go through this. So
Yes.
there's all the support there. I've been contacted, so like on the day of an assessment because somebody hasn't felt well. Yeah, and we've just rescheduled. So there's no issue around that. And one of the other statements is that if anybody's uncertain about what they need to do, contact me so we'll jump on a Zoom call. I'm on a Zoom call tomorrow with somebody who's like raised the same thing about how do I uh, provide evidence, because sometimes the evidence that we require you can't do because of confidentiality. So we're very flexible around things like that.
Mm.
If people are uncertain about the interviews or the assessments, we can talk through all of that. And as you say, so most people either after they've listened to the videos or after we've had a support call with them, are absolutely fine. In fact, so I shouldn't laugh at this, but I do. There's quite a few times when if I've been running an assessment and I've said to people, look, I've got everything switched off. My usual spiel is I've got everything switched off that I can't switch off. The only thing I can't switch off are my dogs. So if you hear them barking in the background, apologies. And quite a few people will say, oh, it's all right. I've listened to the 11 capability videos, so I've heard them in the background already. So, yeah, so I know what they sound like.
Yeah.
And it is that, just getting people to feel comfortable with the pro. Yeah, yes, it's nerve-wracking. Yeah, I go through, I've got my own accreditations, that I'm going through. It's nerve-wracking for me as well. But the support that we provide is based on the principle, we've been there, seen it, and done it ourselves. So we know what it's like. So no questions are off limits. No amount of support is turned down.
Mm. And I would add to that, David, or expand on that by saying, for anybody who's enjoying a cup of coffee and listening to this and thinking, perhaps I will go for my accreditation. We're capabilities based. If you listen to this on a regular basis, you'll have heard me going on about this a lot. We're capabilities based rather than competencies based. And what that means is we can be really holistic in our approach. So as David said, we've got a list of criteria for your evidence portfolio, but say you've been coaching in the forces and you don't have testimonials because you work for the forces and they sent you wherever you needed to do the work. You didn't collect testimonials. That's completely fine. That's what the interview is for. It's a catch-all for all those different types of scenarios. And as I keep saying, let's face it, coaching is not rocket science. It's having a damn good conversation. So that's why we're capabilities based. It's accurate, it's holistic, it's very inclusive, and it's fast in terms of getting the results. So there's very, very little written work for anybody to do. People worry about, oh, I haven't kept a coaching log, I haven't kept a CPD log. Am I going to have to write an essay? We don't do any of that. What's really important is the self-reflection. So after your interview, after your assessment call, you've got a self-reflection form to fill out. It can take you 5 minutes. It can take you 15 minutes. It could take a paragraph. It could take 2 or 3. But that's about as much as it is, other than signing the professional code of conduct, filling out the standards and ethics questionnaire. Does that form part of the interview, David? I can't remember.
So, yeah, at a practitioner level, we have a questionnaire. Once you get into the interview stage at sort of senior and above, we'll generally cover questions such as, walk me through your coaching agreement. What are the more important legal and ethical issues that you'll remind people of, before you start a session? We gather where people have got a sort of coaching agreement or a coaching contract or a coaching agreement, whichever language you use. We'll collect that if people have got it. If they haven't got it and we think they should need it, we'll make recommendations and send examples. But we are flexible around that. The testimonials, for example, is a good one, because we have somebody going through the accreditation process at the minute at master level, and the nature of the work that they do prohibits testimonials because it would just become evident who the people were. And a coaching log as well, because whereas we would normally just say, just do initials, they have a concern that, well, even those initials, if people knew where I worked, would be attributed to a certain person. So in that instance, we said, right, don't worry about any of that. Simply, either on a Word document or an email, a couple of paragraphs. The reason that I can't provide testimonials is nature of the work, blah, blah, blah. The reason that I can't provide a coaching log is, however, I can, I endorse that I've worked in this field for X amount of time doing this, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And then when we do the interview, we have that, okay, just tell me a little bit more about yourself, and what you do. And then it just, it just pulls everything together. The other thing as well, just to add on about why the capabilities model works better in certain areas, is that when you look at a competency model is generic across everything you do all of the time, which means that in a coaching engagement, for example, if within your competency model you've got a statement that says understands how to so how to refer someone to like an alternative therapy. What if that doesn't happen in the so like what if that doesn't happen in that session? So we have a question about that within the interview, so we can talk about that. So we talk about the things that you can't generally assess, and the capability model assesses everything that should happen in a coaching or a mentoring session from the moment you say hi to the moment that you say bye. Actually, I quite like the sound of that, so I've never said that before. Just seem to be relevant within that.
Yeah, it just flowed off the tongue. Thank you. Well, I'm conscious of the time. These sessions are half an hour, and we've used up our half an hour. David, other than the IAPC&M directory, any leaders out there having a cup of coffee, listening to this and thinks David's the coach for me? He tells it like it is. How can they find you, and what's on offer?
Yeah, they can find me through so like the IAPC&M contact page. So I have an email there, so david@coachaccreditation.services. They can find me through my own website, which is perceptualreality.co.uk. The email address of which is david@perceptualreality.co.uk. What's on offer? Predominantly, I work like with leaders in like corporates, so leadership coaching, executive coaching. I have, without like going through it, I have a number of specific accreditations and certifications. I'm a Marshall Goldsmith Stakeholder Centered Coach, which is the main model that I tend to use where relevant. But I'm also qualified in a number of like world leading leadership assessment tools. So it's very much around that. I'm also a certified team coach, yeah, etc., etc., etc. So it's easier really. So like if people want to have a conversation to have that conversation, because it's not so much about what I can offer, although that's part of it. It's very much the what's the issue that you're dealing with, and this is what I can do to help. I am what I would say is I have an eclectic approach, so I don't distinguish between like coaching and mentoring. I work on the principle of if it's coaching, mentoring, guidance, support, pointing people in the right direction, you get all of that. So like as a package, because I work on the principle, if I've got the information that I think is going to be useful, then that's what
Why
you
would
get.
you keep it? Yeah.
Yeah, and in a few more weeks' time, so like I'll be emphasizing more about metaphor and storytelling. Yeah, perhaps if it's relevant.
And supervision, because you're about to
supervision as well. Yeah. I'm qualified and accredited supervisor as well.
Yeah. Great. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And I can really get the big picture in terms of how the photography links to the corporate work you do and the language that you're using. So I think anybody who's interested in that will certainly benefit. Whether you're interested or not, you'll certainly benefit. But if you've got that shared passion, then you'll fly together, I am sure. Thank you, Dave.
Movies as well. So as you know,
Yes.
so like so movies play an important aspect of if you've seen this film, you'll recognize like this quote.
Yeah, you're amazing at remembering the quotes. I'm always telling Robert, that you mentioned a quote, and just can't believe the diverse range of genre of movies that you watch and remember.
There are to my eternal shame, as Yvonne would say, who's my wife. I stood in the kitchen once and Jaws was on TV, and I said that I did the script whilst I was making something sort of like in the kitchen whilst it was on TV. So when I walked in, Yvonne just gave me the look of, you have seen this film far too many times. So yeah.
All right. Thank you, David. Take care.
No, thank you. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.